Strangers in familiar skin. The coffee shop was deliberately ordinary. The kind of place where billionaires didn't venture. That's precisely why Dominic Foster had chosen it. Tucked away in the old neighborhood where he'd grown up, it offered anonymity his usual haunts couldn't provide. He adjusted his non-designer glasses and plain button-down shirt, a far cry from the tailored suits that graced magazine covers with his face. The bell above the door jingled, and he knew it was her, before looking up. Naomi Winters had a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Something money couldn't buy. "You're early," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Her chestnut hair was shorter than he remembered, falling just below her, shoulders with natural waves that suggested she'd come straight from the field. The tiny scar above her right eyebrow was new. Dominic smiled despite himself. "And you're late. Some things never change." 15 years had passed since they'd sat, face to face, yet the rhythm of their interaction felt eerily familiar. They had once been inseparable, the science prodigy and the girl who documented everything through her camera lens. Before Foster Technologies became a household name, before she became renowned for wildlife photography that brought endangered species into living rooms around the world. "I almost didn't come," Naomi admitted, wrapping her hands around the mug the waitress placed before her. "Your assistant was quite persistent." "Josephine can be persuasive. I apologize if she overstepped." "She mentioned a crisis. That doesn't sound like the Dominic Foster splashed across business journals, the man who turned disaster into opportunity." His fingers tensed around his cup. "The public face of success often masks private battles." "So I've heard," she said, studying him with the same attentive gaze she must use with her wildlife subjects. "What's the real reason you tracked me down? Dom? It's been 15 years of radio silence and suddenly you need to see me?" The nickname caught him off guard. No one called him Dom anymore. It was always Dominic, Mr. Foster, or Sir. The casualness of it transported him back to summer nights by the creek behind her parents' house, plotting escape from their small town. "The board is moving against me," he said quietly. "They claim I've lost touch with the company's vision, that I've become a liability." Her eyebrows rose. "The company you founded? How is that possible?" "I only own 42% now. The price of expansion." He ran a hand through his meticulously styled hair, messing it up in a way that made him look more like the boy she'd known. "They've orchestrated a narrative that I'm unstable since Julia left." "Your ex-wife," Naomi clarified, and he nodded. The divorce became rather public. Julia's new relationship with my former CFO didn't help matters. Naomi winced. "I saw some headlines. I'm sorry." "Don't be. The marriage was always more business arrangement than love match." He leaned forward. "But it's created a perception problem. Investors are nervous. The Hammond Gala is next weekend. Everyone who matters in tech and finance will be there. It's where I need to demonstrate stability. And you called me because—" Her eyes narrowed with sudden understanding. "Oh, no, Dom. Whatever you're thinking—" "I need someone I can trust," he interrupted. "Someone who knows the real me, not the caricature they've created. After 15 years, you think I know you?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The boy I knew wanted to create technology that helped people, not become another corporate titan." Her words hit with precision, as they always had. "That boy still exists," he said softly. "He's just buried under quarterly projections and shareholder expectations." Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Or pity. "What exactly are you asking me, Dominic?" He took a deep breath. "I need you to accompany me to the gala. As more than a friend." "More?" Her voice was dangerously quiet. "The board and investors need to see me as stable, committed. They need to believe I'm not the emotional wreck they've painted me as." He couldn't meet her eyes. They need to see me with someone who matters. So you want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? After you disappeared from my life without so much as a goodbye? She started gathering her things. This was a mistake. Naomi. Wait. His hand caught hers and the contact sent an unexpected current through them both. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but there's no one else I can turn to. She paused, looking down at their hands. You have a funny way of reconnecting with old friends, Dominic Foster. Is that what we are? Still friends? The question hung between them, heavy with 15 years of silence and unanswered questions. I don't know what we are, she finally said, but I do know you owe me a better explanation than this. Part 2. The Proposition. The sleek town car glided through evening traffic, carrying Naomi toward Dominic's penthouse. She'd agreed to hear him out. Nothing more. Through the tinted windows, Manhattan's skyline glittered like a constellation, brought to earth, reminding her how far they'd both traveled from their small-town beginnings. Pressing her forehead against the cool glass, Naomi thought of the photography assignment she'd postponed in Tanzania to be here. Endangered black, rhinos that wouldn't wait for her personal drama to resolve. Her agent had been livid. Ms. Winters, we've arrived, the driver announced, interrupting her thoughts. The building screamed old money with marble columns and uniformed doormen. As she stepped from the car, Naomi felt acutely aware of her practical boots and well-worn leather jacket, clothing designed for function in the field, not to impress billionaires. Ms. Winters, welcome. Mr. Foster is expecting you, said the concierge, escorting her to a private elevator that required a keycard. He mentioned you're an old friend. Very old, she murmured as the doors closed. The elevator opened directly into Dominic's penthouse, a vast expanse of glass and minimalist design that somehow managed to feel cold despite the spectacular views. Dominic stood by floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the city lights, holding a tumbler of amber liquid. You came, he said, turning to face her. I said I would. She remained by the elevator. Nice place. Very austere. A hint of a smile crossed his face. The interior designer called it purposefully restrained. I'd call it lonely. His smile faded. He gestured toward a sitting area where a bottle of wine and 2 glasses waited. Your favorite, Pinot Noir from Oregon's Willamette Valley. You remember that? I remember everything, Naomi. The statement hung between them as she reluctantly took a seat. He poured the wine, his movements precise and controlled. So different from the excitable boy who'd once spilled soda on her science project and spent hours helping her rebuild it. You said you'd explain, she prompted, accepting the glass, but not drinking. Dominic sat across from her, the coffee table a convenient barrier. 6 months ago, I proposed a significant pivot for Foster Technologies, moving away from consumer electronics toward sustainable energy solutions. That sounds like the Dominic I knew. The board disagreed. They claimed it was too risky, too idealistic. His voice hardened. Then Julia's affair with Gregory became public, and suddenly I was portrayed as making emotional decisions due to personal turmoil. Naomi swirled her wine. And were you? No. He paused. Maybe. Not in the way they think. So you need to prove you're stable by bringing a fake girlfriend to this gala? Not just any girlfriend, someone I'm serious about. He leaned forward. The narrative they've created is that I'm spiraling, making erratic choices. I need to counter that. With more deception? She raised an eyebrow. How does that solve anything? It buys me time. His knuckles whitened around his glass. 3 key investors will be at the gala. If they back my vision, I can secure majority, support for the new direction. And if they don't, I lose control of my company. Everything I've built becomes another soulless tech conglomerate focused solely on profit. For the first time, his carefully constructed facade cracked. I can't let that happen, Naomi. She studied him, searching for the boy she'd known in the man before her. Why me, Dom? You must know dozens of women who'd jump at this chance. Because they're after exactly that, a chance, access, status. He set his glass down with a clink. I need someone who sees past all that. Someone who knew me before. Before you were rich? She couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Before I forgot what mattered. His honesty startled her. Naomi stood, abruptly walking to the windows. The city sprawled below like a circuit board of light and shadow. You disappeared, Dominic. After Stanford accepted you, you just vanished from my life. She heard him rise, felt him approach. It wasn't intentional. 15 years feels pretty intentional. She turned to face him. I emailed, called. Your mother said you were too busy for hometown connections. Pain flashed across his features. She never told me. Convenient excuse. It's the truth. He stood close enough that she caught the faint scent of his cologne, sandalwood, and something uniquely him. My parents were determined I become someone worthy of Stanford. Someone who didn't carry the stigma of our neighborhood. So I was part of the stigma? The old hurt surfaced unexpectedly. No, God, no. He raked fingers through his hair. You were the best part of home, but they what? They knew how I felt about you. The admission seemed to cost him. They worried it would hold me back. Naomi's breath caught. How you felt? A tense silence stretched between them. It doesn't matter now, he finally said, retreating behind his careful mask. I'm asking too much. I shouldn't have contacted you. Something in his deflection sparked her curiosity and her determination. The Dominic she'd known never backed down from a challenge. Neither had she. One night, she said suddenly. He blinked. What? I'll do it. One night, one gala. She crossed her arms. But I have conditions. Relief and wariness mingled in his expression. Name them. First, no sob story about rekindled romance. We reconnected as friends. It evolved naturally. I won't pretend we've been secretly involved. He nodded. Reasonable. Second, I wear what I choose. I won't be dressed up like some trophy. Of course. Third, after this is over, you make a significant donation to the Black Rhino Conservation Project I'm documenting. A genuine smile appeared. Still saving the world, one endangered species at a time. Someone has to. She held his gaze. And finally, you tell me the real reason you cut me out of your life. The whole truth. Not the sanitized version. His smile disappeared. Naomi, those are my terms. Take them or find someone else to play pretend. The silence that followed felt electric. Dominic drained his glass and set it down with deliberate care. Deal, he said finally, extending his hand. When their fingers met, Naomi ignored the familiar warmth that traveled up her arm. This was business, a transaction between old acquaintances. Nothing more. The gala is Saturday, he said, all efficiency now. My assistant will coordinate details, car service, security briefing. Security briefing? For a party? Welcome to my world. Something like regret crossed his face. It's not always as glamorous as it appears. As the elevator doors closed between them minutes later, Naomi wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The boy she'd known had become a stranger with familiar eyes that still couldn't quite hide the truth when they looked at her. One night, she whispered to herself as the elevator descended. What could possibly go wrong? Glittering facades. The Hammond Gala transformed the Metropolitan Museum of Art into a wonderland of wealth and influence. Champagne flowed like water, diamonds caught the light from crystal chandeliers, and the elite of New York's business world, moved through the space with practiced ease, predators and prey in evening wear. Naomi stood before the mirror in the museum's private preparation suite, hardly recognizing herself. She'd kept her promise to choose her own attire, working with an old friend from her fashion photography days. The resulting gown was a deep emerald that complemented her eyes, elegant but understated, with clean lines and subtle details that whispered rather than shouted. A soft knock at the door preceded Dominic's entrance. He stopped abruptly when he saw her. "You look—" He seemed to search for words. "Like yourself, but suitable for your world," she finished, a hint of challenge in her voice. "I was going to say breathtaking." His voice dropped lower. "But never suitable. You've always been too real for this circus." Something fluttered in her chest, but she tamped it down. "You clean up nicely yourself." That was an understatement. Dominic in a tailored tuxedo was a sight that would make anyone look twice. The years had been kind to him, adding character to his features without diminishing his natural charm. "Ready for battle?" he asked, offering his arm. She took it, feeling the solid warmth of him through the fine fabric. "I thought this was a party." "In this crowd?" Same thing. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Remember, Elijah Winthrop is the key investor we need to impress. Balding, bow tie, perpetually looks like he's smelling something unpleasant. Charming. He controls enough shares to tip the scales in my favor." Dominic hesitated before adding, "There's something else you should know." "What now?" "Julia will be here with Gregory." Naomi's steps faltered. "Your ex-wife and her new boyfriend, who happens to be your former CFO? That's not awkward at all." "Welcome to my world," he repeated his words from the penthouse. But this time with a grimace. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough to outshine anyone here." As they descended the grand staircase, Naomi felt the weight of hundreds of evaluating stares. Dominic's hand pressed reassuringly against the small of her back, grounding her. "Dominic Foster, the man of mystery emerges," called a voice that managed to be both jovial and cutting. A tall, silver-haired man approached, flanked by a woman whose beauty seemed manufactured to perfection. And with a stunning companion, "You've been holding out on us." "Harrison," Dominic nodded coolly. "This is Naomi Winters. Naomi, Harrison Blackwood, head of the board's finance committee." "The wildlife photographer?" Harrison's surprise seemed genuine. "Your work on Siberian tigers was featured in National Geographic last year. Remarkable shots." Naomi hadn't expected recognition of her work in this crowd. "Thank you." "How did you two connect?" Harrison's eyes gleamed with calculation, poorly disguised as interest. Before Dominic could speak, Naomi answered, "We grew up together in Pennsylvania. Recently reconnected when I was exhibiting in New York. Childhood friends too." "More?" Harrison's gaze flicked meaningfully between them. "How refreshing. Not Dominic's usual type." "Perhaps that's why it's working so well," Dominic said smoothly, his arm sliding around her waist. The casual possessiveness of the gesture surprised her. Harrison's wife, Naomi presumed, finally spoke. "Julia just arrived with Gregory, causing quite a stir." "I'm sure they are," Dominic replied without looking away from Naomi. "If you'll excuse us, I see Elijah by the Monet. Naomi's been wanting to meet him." As they moved away, Naomi whispered, "I have? No. But it sounds better than 'I need to corner him before Gregory gets to him.'" They navigated through the crowd, Dominic nodding at acquaintances but not stopping. Naomi noticed how people deferred to him, creating space as he passed. Power had its own gravity. "Mr. Foster." A thin man with a bow tie stepped into their path. "I was beginning to think you'd avoid me all evening." "Elijah." Dominic's grip on Naomi tightened fractionally. "I was just coming to find you." May I introduce Naomi Winters? Naomi, Elijah Winthrop, Ms. Winters. Elijah took her offered hand with surprising warmth. Your work on endangered species conservation is commendable. My foundation has supported similar efforts in Southeast Asia. Again, recognition of her work caught her off guard. Thank you. Most people here seem more concerned with market caps than conservation. Elijah's eyes crinkled. Some of us believe responsible investment includes environmental stewardship, a philosophy your companion has recently embraced, it seems. It's not recent, Naomi found herself saying. Dominic was designing solar-powered water filtration systems before he could drive. His first invention was created to help drought-stricken communities. Both men stared at her with surprise. You remember that? Dominic asked quietly. Of course I do. I helped you test the prototypes. She turned back to Elijah. His sustainable energy proposal isn't a midlife crisis or reaction to personal issues. It's a return to his original vision. Elijah studied her with new interest. How refreshing to hear someone speak of Dominic Foster the inventor rather than Dominic Foster the business titan. The world has enough titans, she replied. It needs more visionaries. Something shifted in Elijah's expression. Indeed it does. He directed his attention to Dominic. Perhaps we should discuss your proposal further. Monday lunch? I'd be delighted, Dominic replied, his professional mask firmly in place despite the triumph Naomi sensed beneath it. As Elijah moved away, Dominic turned to her with undisguised wonder. How did you do that? Do what? Elijah Winthrop just voluntarily suggested a meeting. The man who's been avoiding my calls for weeks. She shrugged. I just told the truth. Before he could respond, a striking blonde in a red dress that seemed painted on approached, a handsome man trailing in her wake. Dominic, the woman said, her voice honey-sweet and razor-sharp. What a surprise. Rumor had it you were in seclusion. Creative differences with the board, I heard. Naomi felt Dominic tense beside her. Julia, he acknowledged with a nod. Gregory, enjoying your evening? Immensely. Julia's gaze shifted to Naomi, assessing and dismissing in one sweep. And who might this be? Naomi Winters, Dominic said, his voice warming as he looked at her. My partner. The possessive term sent an unexpected thrill through Naomi. Partner? Julia's perfect eyebrows arched. How progressive. In every sense of the word, Dominic replied evenly. Gregory cleared his throat. Foster Technologies stock dropped 3 points this week. Investors are nervous about your leadership. How fortunate that Elijah Winthrop just agreed to back my sustainable energy initiative, Dominic countered. Funny how quickly market sentiment can change. Julia's composure slipped momentarily. Winthrop agreed, but he was apparently waiting to see if I remembered my roots, Dominic finished, his hand finding Naomi's. Sometimes we need someone to remind us of who we really are. The loaded statement hung in the air between them. Julia's gaze hardened as she noted their entwined fingers. Well, she said finally, how convenient that you found such a grounding influence just when you needed investor confidence. The insinuation was clear. Naomi felt anger flare, but before she could respond, a waiter appeared with champagne. Dominic smoothly acquired 2 glasses, handing one to Naomi. To new beginnings, he said, ignoring Julia entirely as he clinked his glass against Naomi's, and to remembering what matters. As Julia and Gregory retreated, visibly displeased, Naomi studied Dominic's face. For a moment, his carefully constructed persona had slipped, revealing something raw and genuine beneath. Did you mean what you said? She asked quietly. About remembering who you are? His eyes met hers, unguarded for the first time since they'd reconnected. Tonight's the first time in years I've felt like myself, Naomi. That has nothing to do with investors or stock prices. The admission hung between them, fragile and unexpected. Before she could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Photographers, Dominic explained. They always crash these events eventually. You should be used to cameras by now. Different when you're the subject rather than the benefactor. His expression clouded. I should warn you, too late. Flashes erupted around them as photographers recognized the tech billionaire and his mysterious companion. Mr. Foster, over here. Who's the lady, Dominic? Are you responding to Julia's engagement announcement? The last question made both of them freeze. Engagement? Naomi whispered. Dominic's jaw tightened. News to me. Without warning, he pulled her closer, one hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Trust me, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Before she could answer, his lips found hers in a kiss that started as performance but quickly became something else entirely. Something that felt remarkably like coming home after a long journey. When they parted, the cameras were still flashing, but Naomi barely noticed. All she could see was Dominic looking at her the way he had 15 years ago, on the night before he left for Stanford, with wonder and regret and something deeper she'd never been able to name. I think, she said softly, we need to talk about everything. His answer was lost in the continuing commotion, but his eyes told her everything she needed to know. Whatever game they'd been playing had just become very, very real. Truth in the aftermath. Dawn broke over New York as Dominic's town car pulled away from the gala's after-party. Naomi sat beside him in silence, the space between them charged with unspoken words. The kiss, meant as a strategic move against the paparazzi, had shifted something fundamental between them. Your place or mine? Dominic asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. Naomi raised an eyebrow. For talking, he clarified quickly. You said we needed to talk. Mine, she decided. Your penthouse feels like a stage set. I need neutral territory. He nodded, instructing the driver to head to the boutique hotel where she was staying. Neither spoke during the ride, both aware they were approaching a precipice 15 years in the making. Her suite was modest but comfortable, with large windows overlooking Central Park. As Dominic loosened his bow tie and Naomi kicked off her heels, the artificial glamour of the evening began to fade. You were magnificent tonight, Dominic said, accepting the tumbler of whiskey she offered. Elijah Winthrop called me just before we left. He's not only backing my initiative, but bringing 2 other major investors with him. Congratulations. She sat across from him, still in her emerald gown. Mission accomplished. Thanks to you. He studied her over the rim of his glass. You didn't just play a part tonight. You defended me. Why? Because I believed what I said. She tucked her legs beneath her. The boy I knew wanted to change the world, not just profit from it. A comfortable silence settled between them, reminiscent of countless nights spent talking on her parents' porch swing. Your turn for honesty, Naomi finally said. You promised to tell me why you disappeared from my life. The whole truth this time. Dominic set his glass down and moved to stand by the window, silhouetted against the lightening sky. For a moment, he looked more like the uncertain 18-year-old she'd known than a powerful CEO. The night before I left for Stanford, he began. I came to your house. I remember. Her voice softened. We sat on the porch swing until sunrise. I was going to tell you something important, but I lost my nerve. Tell me what? He turned to face her. That I was in love with you. Had been since we were 14. The admission hung in the air, both shocking and somehow not surprising at all. Why didn't you say anything? She whispered. Fear. His smile was self-deprecating. The great Dominic Foster, terrified of rejection by the one person whose opinion actually mattered. You thought I'd reject you? You'd just been accepted to the National Geographic internship program. Your dreams were taking you in a different direction. He shrugged. What could I offer that compared to photographing wildlife around the IB world? That should have been my choice to make, she said, an old anger stirring. Not yours. I know that now. He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling it further. But then came Stanford, and my parents' expectations, and suddenly I was on a path that seemed to accelerate without my control. That explains that night, not 15 years of silence. He nodded, accepting the challenge in her tone. The first semester I called you twice. Your father said you were in Africa, unreachable. My first assignment. I came back after 6 weeks. By then, things had changed. I'd created the prototype that would eventually become Foster Technologies' first product. Suddenly there were investors, mentors, people pulling me in every direction. His voice grew distant. My father made it clear that success required singular focus. No distractions. And I was a distraction. The words tasted bitter. The opposite. He moved closer, sitting on the coffee table directly in front of her. You were the only person who would have reminded me what really mattered, why I wanted to create technology in the first place. That makes no sense, Dom. It does when you understand I was weak. Self-loathing edged his voice. Scared of failing. Determined to prove myself. When my mother suggested it was kinder to make a clean break, to let you pursue your dreams without being tied to a long-distance relationship, I convinced myself she was right. So you just erased me? I tried. His hands clenched. But you were never really gone. Every time I compromised my vision for profit, I heard your voice asking why. Every time the board pushed for decisions that prioritized shareholders over sustainability, I thought of how disappointed you'd be. I followed your career, Naomi admitted reluctantly. Watched you become this titan of industry. You seemed so fulfilled. A harsh laugh escaped him. The great illusion of success. I built an empire at the cost of my soul, Naomi. That's a bit dramatic. Is it? He leaned forward. Do you know what finally made me call you? I saw your photo series on environmental devastation caused by tech waste. The irony that my company contributed to exactly what you were fighting against. It broke something in me. Naomi remembered the series. Images of children in developing countries sorting through mountains of discarded electronics, rivers, poisoned by chemical runoff. The sustainable energy pivot, she said slowly. It wasn't just about business, was it? It was about redemption. He met her gaze directly. About becoming someone you wouldn't be ashamed to know. The rawness of his admission stunned her into silence. Your turn, he said quietly. I've laid my soul bare. Why did you agree to help me tonight? The real reason. Naomi rose, needing distance to think. She moved to the window, watching the sun creep over the city skyline. When I saw your name on my phone after 15 years, she began, my first instinct was to ignore it. But curiosity won. Just curiosity? She shook her head, not looking at him. I wanted to see what had become of the boy who broke my heart. A sharp intake of breath told her the words had landed. I was in love with you too, Dom, she continued, her voice steady despite the confession. Had been since you defended me. Against Bobby Mercer in 7th grade. Bobby Mercer? Confusion colored his voice. The kid who made fun of your camera? The one you told she sees beauty where the rest of us see nothing. That makes her special, not weird. I said that. Word for word, she finally turned to face him. No one had ever made me feel valued for being exactly who I was, until you. He stood, taking a step toward her. Naomi, Let me finish, she interrupted. When you left without a word, I told myself it was because you'd found something better. Someone better. It was easier than admitting you simply didn't care enough to stay in touch. That wasn't it at all. I know that now. But for 15 years, I built a life around proving I didn't need you or anyone else. My career became everything. And now, his voice was barely audible. Now I'm standing in a hotel room at dawn with a billionaire who just kissed me senseless in front of New York's elite, wondering if we've both wasted 15 years running from the same thing. The tension between them was palpable, years of unspoken feelings condensed into a single, charged moment. What happens next? He asked, taking another step toward her. I don't know. She met his gaze steadily. The gala's over. You got what you needed from the investors. There's no reason to continue this charade. What if I don't want it to be a charade anymore? His voice dropped lower. What if I want a second chance at what I was too cowardly to pursue 15 years ago? Naomi felt her careful defenses wavering. We're different people now, Dom. You run a tech empire. I spend most of my time in remote wilderness areas documenting endangered species. Our worlds don't exactly align. Maybe they align more than you think. He closed the remaining distance between them, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. My sustainable energy initiative. It's partly aimed at developing technology for conservation research. Solar-powered tracking, devices, water purification systems for remote field stations. You're making that up. I'm not. The intensity in his gaze was impossible to doubt. I've been following your work for years, Naomi, trying to create technology that would support it, even if you never knew. The revelation struck her speechless. I'm not asking for forever, he said softly. Just time. To see if there's still something worth exploring between Dominic and Naomi, not the billionaire and the photographer, just us. Dawn had fully broken now, bathing the room in golden light. 15 years of distance and hurt lay between them, but also a foundation of understanding that had never truly been destroyed. Time? She repeated thoughtfully. I leave for Tanzania in 3 days. I have a jet, he offered with a tentative smile, and video conferencing capabilities even in remote areas. Very presumptuous, Mr. Foster. Cautiously hopeful, he corrected, reaching slowly to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The gentle gesture undid her more than any passionate declaration could have. We have a lot to figure out, she warned. We always did. His smile broadened. Remember our science fair project? Everyone said combining your photography with my solar panels wouldn't work. We proved them wrong. We usually did. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. One step at a time. Naomi looked at their joined hands, then back to his face, seeing both the boy she'd known and the man he'd become. One step at a time, she agreed. As the new day dawned fully over Manhattan, they stood together in the golden light, neither certain of the path ahead but both, for the first time in 15 years, willing to explore it together. Rewriting the ending 3 months later, Naomi crouched in the tall grass of the Tanzanian savanna, her camera trained on a mother rhinoceros and her calf. The early morning light cast a golden glow across the landscape, creating the perfect conditions for the shot she'd been waiting days to capture. As the mother rhino nudged her baby toward a watering hole, Naomi's finger hovered over the shutter button. A soft electronic ping from her satellite phone broke her concentration. Impeccable timing as always, Foster, she muttered, though a smile tugged at her lips. She captured the shot quickly before retrieving the phone from her pocket. A message from Dominic. Board meeting over. Green Energy Initiative approved unanimously. Calling in 5. True to his word, the phone vibrated moments later. Naomi retreated to her jeep before answering. Let me guess, she said by way of greeting. You couldn't wait to share your triumph. Dominic's laugh warmed her despite the thousands of miles between them. Can you blame me? 3 months ago, they were ready to oust me. Today, they're calling me visionary. I believe the term I used was remembered what matters, she teased. Congratulations. Dom, you deserve this. We deserve this, he corrected. Your input on the conservation applications made all the difference. Since the night of the gala, they'd fallen into an unexpected rhythm. While Naomi continued her photography work in Tanzania, Dominic had divided his time between New York and flying to meet her whenever possible. Their connection, fragile at first, had strengthened through late-night video calls, shared work on his conservation technology, and the gradual rebuilding of trust. How are the solar tracking devices performing? He asked. Remarkably well. She glanced at her equipment. The research team can't believe the battery life. Your engineers outdid themselves. Not my engineers. Our project. There was a pause before he added, which reminds me why I'm really calling. Oh. The prototype field station is ready for installation. Completely sustainable, zero environmental impact, with all the technology a wildlife photographer and research team could need. Pride filled his voice, reminding her of the teenage boy who'd stayed up 3 nights straight to perfect his science fair project. That's fantastic, she said. When will the team arrive to set it up? Actually, I was hoping to do it personally. His tone shifted, becoming more hesitant. With you. Naomi leaned against the jeep, watching the rhinos in the distance. You're coming back to Tanzania? If that's okay. A nervousness she rarely heard from him crept into his voice. There's something important I want to discuss, and I'd rather do it in person. A flutter of anticipation rose in her chest. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved into something neither had dared to define. Deeper than friendship, more honest than their teenage feelings, yet still cautious. They were taking it one step at a time, as promised. When? Tomorrow. Evening. Unless that's too soon, she laughed. The great Dominic Foster, giving less than 24 hours notice? The board would be shocked at such impulsivity. The board doesn't know that I've had the jet on standby for 3 days, waiting for the meeting to conclude. His voice softened. I've missed you, Naomi. I've missed you too, she admitted, surprising herself with how easily the truth came now. The research camp coordinates are in your pilot system. I'll make sure there's a decent meal waiting. Meaning you'll ask Jabari to cook instead of attempting it yourself? My talents lie elsewhere, Foster. Indeed they do. The warmth in his voice made her blush despite being alone in the savannah. I'll see you tomorrow. After they disconnected, Naomi sat for a moment, contemplating how dramatically her life had changed since that coffee shop meeting. 3 months ago, she'd been defiantly independent, convinced that her career was all she needed. Now, she found herself eagerly anticipating Dominic's visits, their professional collaboration enriching both their work. Yet something remained unresolved between them, a question neither had been brave enough to ask. What came next? The following evening, Naomi stood at the small airstrip watching Dominic's jet touch down. Despite having seen him just 3 weeks earlier, her heart quickened as the door opened and he appeared at the top of the stairs. He'd abandoned his corporate attire for clothes better suited to the field. Khaki pants, a simple button-down with rolled sleeves and hiking boots that actually looked broken in. His hair was longer than when they'd reconnected, more like the boy she'd known than the polished CEO. He spotted her and broke into a smile that erased the remaining traces of boardroom tension from his face. Before she could move to greet him, he was striding toward her with purpose. You changed your hair, he noted, reaching to touch the short bob she'd recently adopted for practicality in the field. Easier to manage out here, she explained. Like it? I like you, he answered simply. The hair is just details. She rolled her eyes to hide how the words affected her. Smooth talker. Come on, Jabari's prepared dinner at the camp. As they drove through the gathering dusk, Dominic updated her on the latest developments at Foster Technologies. The sustainable energy division expanding faster than projected. The board's complete reversal on his leadership. Julia and Gregory's hasty departure to a competitor after their stock options vested. Enough about New York, he finally said as they approached the research camp. Show me what you've been working on. The pride in his voice when she displayed her latest photographs and research findings made her realize how rare it had been in her life to have someone truly see and value her work. Most men she'd dated had viewed her career as an exotic hobby, rather than a calling. After dinner with the research team, they walked to a ridge overlooking the savannah. The night was clear, stars spanning the sky in a brilliant canopy that city dwellers like Dominic rarely experienced. It's incredible, he murmured, gazing upward. I forgot how many stars there are when you get away from artificial light. That's why the field station needs to minimize light pollution, she reminded him. The animals rely on natural darkness, cycles, already incorporated into the design. He turned to her with a smile. I do listen when you talk, you know. Most of the time, she teased. When you're not distracted by quarterly projections. Instead of bantering back as usual, he grew serious. I've been doing a lot of thinking about those projections lately. About the future. Something in his tone made her pulse quicken. Oh? He gestured for her to sit on a flat rock overlooking the valley. When they were settled, he took a deep breath. For 15 years, I built Foster Technologies with a single-minded focus that cost me nearly everything that mattered, he began. I convinced myself that success was measured in market share and innovation patents. You've accomplished extraordinary things, Dom, but at what cost? He turned to face her fully. These past 3 months, working with you on the conservation, technology, splitting my time between boardrooms and field research, it's the happiest I've been since we were teenagers. She smiled. I've enjoyed it too. More than enjoyed. He took her hand. I've found purpose again, balance, and it's made me realize something important. The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I don't want to be CEO anymore. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, this wasn't it. What? I'm stepping down as CEO of Foster Technologies. The words seemed to liberate him as he spoke them. I'll remain on the board, maintain my ownership stake, but day-to-day operations will transfer to someone else. Dom, that company is your life's work, your identity. That's exactly the problem. He squeezed her hand. I let it become my identity, and in the process, I lost sight of who I really was, who I wanted to be. And who is that? She asked softly. An inventor, a problem solver. His eyes met hers. Someone worthy of a second chance with the woman he never stopped loving. The declaration hung between them in the starlit darkness. You're making a life-changing decision because of me? She pulled her hand away. I can't be responsible for that, Dom. Not because of you, because of us, the person I am when I'm with you. He reclaimed her hand. But that's not all. I've established a foundation focused on developing technology for conservation efforts worldwide. Self-sustaining field stations, non-invasive tracking devices, water purification systems. Understanding dawned. The Foster Conservation Technology Initiative. He nodded. I want to run it personally. Hands-on development, field testing, the work that originally inspired me. That's incredible. She studied his face, seeing the excitement that animated his features. You're serious about this? Completely. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet pouch. Which brings me to the real reason I flew halfway around the world. Naomi's heart stuttered as he opened the pouch and tipped a delicate ring into his palm. Not a traditional diamond, but a band of recycled platinum inlaid with tiny amber stones that caught the starlight. "This isn't a proposal," he said quickly, seeing her expression. "Not yet. We're still finding our way back to each other." "Then what is it?" she whispered. "A promise." He held the ring between them. "I'm not asking you to change your life. Your work is too important, and your independence is part of who you are. I would never want to diminish that. So what are you asking?" "For partnership. True partnership." His voice grew more confident. "The foundation will be headquartered in New York, but its work will take place wherever conservation efforts are needed most, like Tanzania." Understanding bloomed. "You want to split your time between New York and wherever I am." "Exactly." Hope filled his eyes. "My team can handle most operations remotely. I only need to be physically present for board meetings quarterly. The rest of the time, you'd be here, working alongside me?" He nodded. "Or in Borneo when you're photographing orangutans, or in the Arctic for polar bear migration. Wherever your work takes you, the Foundation's resources go with you." "And us?" she asked carefully. "What about us?" "One step at a time, remember?" He offered the ring again. "This isn't about possession or changing who we are. It's about choosing to walk the same path, side by side, after 15 years of separate journeys." Naomi looked from the ring to Dominic's face, seeing both the boy she'd loved and the man who had found his way back to his true self. The proposal was so perfectly suited to who they were, neither asking the other to compromise their essential nature, but instead finding a way to weave their separate passions into a shared purpose. "I once photographed an elderly couple who'd been married 60 years, she said slowly. When I asked their secret, the woman said, "We never saw marriage as two people becoming one. We saw it as two whole people choosing to build something greater together." "That's exactly what I'm proposing." He smiled. "Metaphorically speaking, of course." She laughed, the sound carrying across the savannah. "For someone who claims this isn't a proposal, you're doing a remarkably good job of it. Is that a yes to the partnership?" Naomi looked out over the landscape that had become her second home, then back to the man who had somehow always remained her first. The path ahead wouldn't be simple. They were both too independent, too passionate about their work for an easy relationship. But perhaps that was precisely what would make it work. "Yes," she said, extending her hand, "to the partnership, to building something greater together." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, not as an engagement but as a promise, the first rays of dawn began to break over the horizon, bathing the savannah in golden light. "Look at that," Dominic murmured, his arm slipping around her waist. "Perfect timing." "Almost like we planned it," she agreed, leaning into him. "Some things can't be planned," he said softly. 15 years ago, I thought I knew exactly how my life would unfold. I was spectacularly wrong. And now? Now?" He smiled down at her. "Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly who I'm supposed to be with." As the sun rose fully over the savannah, Naomi thought about the artificial glitter of the Hammond gala that had brought them back together, how different this natural splendor was, and how much more authentic the connection they'd found. The pretense had become reality, the facade giving way to something true. Whatever the future held, they would face it as they stood now. Two whole people, choosing each other freely, writing a new ending to a story 15 years in the making. "One step at a time," she whispered, echoing their agreement from months before. His answer was a kiss as golden as the dawn breaking around them, a promise, a beginning, and most importantly, a choice made not from obligation or necessity, but from the recognition that some paths are better traveled together.